from the Ministry of External Affairs and the Air Force also present. So just to go over what was said, it said India had informed of counter-terror action taken against jaish-e-mohammed in Pak yesterday. Against this action, Pakistan used its Air Force to target military installations on the Indian side. India was alert and managed to foil that strike from Pakistan. The Indian Air Force responded, and in the aerial engagement between the Indian Air Force and the Pakistan Air Force, one MiG-21 Bison on our side from the Indian Air Force shot down an F-16 aircraft of the Pakistan Air Force, and ground forces witnessed that aircraft falling and crashing on the Pakistan side of the border. This is the worrying bit. It was also confirmed that in that aerial engagement, we lost on the Indian side one MiG-21 Bison. The pilot is missing in action. Pakistan claims to have the pilot in custody, and India is ascertaining the details right now of that claim to find out what is really the status of this one pilot from the Indian Air Force who is missing in action. That is distressing information.
Very distressing, and I think that's the big news, that the Indian government has now confirmed that one plane has, we've lost one plane, and that the pilot of that particular plane is missing in action. And they have also confirmed that Pakistan has claimed that that pilot is in their custody. So this is as serious and as important as it can get, and it obviously means that the Indian government would want first to get a confirmation whether indeed their pilot is in their custody or not, and two, to then begin the process of securing his release, very similar to what perhaps happened during Kargil in 1999.
During Kargil in 1999, there was one of our pilots who had been held in captivity in Pakistan.
Yes.
How drastically does that change the conversation between two countries?
Well, yes. So during Kargil 1999, Flight Lieutenant, I mean, he's now a group captain, but he was then Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa, whose plane was shot down, much like this incident here. In fact, one of the engines had caught fire at that time, very close to the LOC. There is a process of reigniting the engine that pilots are trained to do. He attempted to do that. The plane veered a little bit, and he actually fell in a no man's area. Ironically, Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa was able to evade for at least 5 or 6 hours any sighting. I mean, he wasn't captured then, and he was actually able to hide for quite a long time. It was his bad luck in that sense that there was a Pakistan foot patrol which spotted him, and then they took him in custody. And that then became a fairly prolonged discussion. So the process that was used then was, there is a concept of a hotline that exists between the DGMOs of both countries. So Director General Military Operations, there's a hotline on the Indian side, there's a hotline on the Pakistani side. And whenever something like this happens, the hotline is used to communicate. The concept of hotline essentially means that this communication is not official. It's not something that is considered a formal communication. It's just to keep the lines of communication open. And that's how they initiate a contact where both sides, the DGMOs of both, designated DGMOs of both countries, talk about it. Post that, if it requires, there can also be a flag meeting between the two DGMOs where the terms of negotiation of release are discussed and they are thrashed out. In Kargil, I think he was released after about 10 days or so. He wasn't released immediately. I remember he was brought back to Delhi in a special plane that came in and was escorted by some Air Force and Ministry government officers as well. So this is going to be a little prolonged. It's unfortunately, if it gets confirmed that he is in their custody, it's not going to end so soon. We will have to do it on a diplomatic level as well as at a DGMO level.
Also, obviously, the government has taken its time, and as it should, to confirm that this pilot was missing in action, and that is out of sensitivity to the family of this pilot, who shouldn't find out on WhatsApp and shouldn't find out on the media and should find out through official channels of communication. So my appeal to everyone watching and to everyone who's looking at your WhatsApp at this point is to spare a moment for the family of this pilot. As tempted as you may be to forward things at this point out of respect for a young pilot who has done so much for the country, let's treat this entire situation with some respect. We understand also, we have the ability to repeat the statement that was made and play it one more time for our viewers who have just joined us. If we could just do that, please.
India had informed about counter-terrorism action it took yesterday against a terrorist training camp of jaish-e-mohammed in Pakistan. Based on credible evidence, that jaish-e-mohammed intended to launch more attacks. Against this counter-terrorism action, Pakistan has responded this morning by using its Air Force to target military installations on the Indian side. Due to our high state of readiness and alertness, Pakistan's attempts were foiled successfully. The Pakistan Air Force was detected and the Indian Air Force responded instantly. In that aerial engagement, one Pakistan Air Force fighter aircraft was shot down by a MiG-21 Bison of the Indian Air Force. The Pakistani aircraft was seen by ground forces falling from the sky on the Pakistan side. In this engagement, we have unfortunately lost one MiG-21. The pilot is missing in action. Pakistan has claimed that he is in their custody. We are ascertaining the facts.
Well, that was a statement from the Ministry of External Affairs and the Air Force that just came out. And just to give you an update, it confirms, the government has confirmed that one Indian MiG-21 has been lost and the pilot is missing in action. Pakistan claims that they have the pilot in custody. That claim has not been verified by the government as of now. Joining us in the studio, Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat in our Noida studio. Mr. Dayal, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time. This is obviously very distressing information that one of our pilots may be, is missing in action as confirmed by the government. We don't know as of now whether he is in custody of Pakistan. What is your reaction right now to the press conference we just heard?
Well, Faye, I'm quite concerned and in fact worried at the turn of events. We were really awaiting confirmation till some time back from our government, and that confirmation has come because the Pakistanis had claimed that they had shot down a MiG, and they had also claimed that one of our pilots is in their custody. The unfortunate part of such situations is that whenever there is a conflict, truth is always the first casualty. And in this situation, things were getting murky. It was not clear to anyone really where the truth lay. Now it has become evident and very clear to everybody that the situation has escalated. And therefore, I am worried about the turn of events. Of course, it's beyond doubt that the provocation came from the Pakistani side. They had been provoking us with many acts of overt and covert hostility. And the Pulwama terror attack was absolutely the last straw. And of course, there is a lot of truth in the old saying that if you want peace, be prepared for war. So we had to make it clear that we were prepared to hit back, and we did, because we launched this attack by our aircraft on the terror camps of the jaish-e-mohammed. But then, of course, Pakistan took it naturally as an ego issue, and they tried to hit back, and there have been claims and counterclaims. I think the time has come for both sides to reflect on the situation and de-escalate matters, because it would be very unfortunate if things go out of control, or if the tension escalates to levels from where it becomes very difficult to bring down the levels of tension. So my own view is that while we have to remain prepared for war, and I'm quite sure that our government is taking every possible step to counter Pakistani maneuvers and aggressive activities, but at the same time, it is very important that the leaders on both sides take up statesman-like position, because a war is going to be extremely expensive for both sides. And if we can avert a war-like situation, then we should do so. I don't mean to say that we should appear weak-kneed. I don't mean to say that we should appear to be capitulating. Far from it. But it takes a lot of bravery to make peace. It is easier to make war than to make peace. You need a lot of statesman-like qualities, and I think that the need of the hour is for the leaders, both of India and Pakistan, to work their way out of the situation, to disentangle the imbroglio, and to make sure that things do not head in the wrong direction, because the cost of war would be beyond imagination. It is true that India is militarily much stronger. Pervez Musharraf had himself said that Pakistan cannot afford a military strike on India because we would hit them back 20 times more. But why have such a situation in the first place? I think it would be far more wise and far more courageous to prevent war, and I think that history will remember our leaders more for preventing war than for getting involved in one. That is my preliminary reaction.
Well,
of course,
Vinay,
I look forward to hearing what other panelists also have to say.
Yes, Vinay, obviously this this news is going to take some time to, for India to digest. This is, like quite rightly pointed out by Mr. Dayal, unfortunately and distressingly part of engagement across the border, and the countries don't have to digest this information. Again, there is information coming in from the other side that we should be very, very careful about, isn't there?
We should be, and I think this is something we've been stressing all day yesterday as well, that war is not a solution. War has collateral damage on both sides. The lives are lost. Indian lives will perhaps run a risk of getting lost as well. But I guess the bigger loss in a situation like this is also the information loss and the complete taking over of all kinds of misinformation that spreads around, and that adds to the pressure on governments, it adds to the pressure on authorities, and that's not the kind of distraction or diversion they need at this point of time.
You know, the ability now on both sides of the border, with everybody has a cell phone, to just make a video of something or the other, put it out, to pretend one video that was taken maybe years ago is of something that's happened today. Actually, what you said, it puts pressure on government at this point to communicate far more than they would be comfortable doing at a time like this.
Absolutely, and I think, you see, that the other thing is that we should, ironically, yesterday, the political class acted way more maturely than perhaps a lot of the citizens. The opposition was very mature in the responses. None of them said anything which was, could be construed in another manner, and the government was also fairly responsible and muted in the way they informed the country about what had happened.
Yes.
It's actually the public pressure that sometimes doesn't, and most people don't even realize what it means. It's not a cricket match on the ground. It's
we should also take responsibility here, because the media hasn't covered itself in glory in the last few days either.
No, they haven't. And
since Pulwama.
Oh, absolutely. I think this warmongering is not this. I mean, this is not the way, because this puts a lot of pressure, and a lot of people watch television, a lot of people consume that content, and it puts unnecessary pressure. And I'll give an example. When Kandahar hijacking happened, the Indian Airlines plane got hijacked on 24th December. 25th December was Christmas, and it was a holiday. It was also Vajpayee's birthday on that day. 26th of December, 25th evening, all the family members, a large number of family members of the victim on the plane actually landed up at Racecourse Road and sat on a protest dharna. That was not the time when media was as huge and heavy as it was now, but there were a few channels. Even at that point of time, the minute that live coverage of families grieving and getting upset started getting beamed, it put pressure on the government. And that was in many ways a big reason why the government finally capitulated and ended up releasing Masood Azhar, because the public opinion was certainly turning against them. And there was a lot of pressure purely because that images were going out live of families angry and
what you're
upset.
saying effectively is what you do on Twitter at this point and on Facebook, and your outpouring of emotion puts unnecessary pressure on the government as far as public opinion is concerned, which the government doesn't need. It needs to be able to make decisions based on what is right for the country, not based on what the general population feels like it wants.
Yes, and I think the good news for all Indians should be that Indian diplomacy and Indian armed forces are the best in the world. They are very, very good. They are professionals. They know exactly what to do, how to do it, and I guess we need to trust them fully in being able to handle the situation which is appropriate. I mean, I remember there was a lot of criticism even when, for instance, the Prime Minister went to the airport to receive the Saudi Arabian Premier.
Yes, but you don't understand what that is about.
Exactly.
Yes.
Most people don't understand what that actually means, because
Yes.
there was a need for something like that to happen, and a Prime Minister doesn't do something like this without the advice of his diplomats who know the subject way better than all of us do. So I guess we need to learn how to trust them. We really do have some of the best diplomats in the world. We really do have some of the best armed forces personnel in the world, and I think we need to back them. I think that's the best thing we can do, is to just back them in whatever decision they're taking, and we know that they're doing it for the right reason.
Yes, in fact, Brigadier Rumel Dahiya joins us as well. Brigadier Dahiya, many thanks for your time, especially on a day like this. I'm sure you're familiar right now with the press conference the MEA just addressed, saying that while we managed to foil the attempt of Pakistan to attack our military installations and our Air Force responded in a timely fashion, one MiG-21 Bison was lost in that engagement, and the pilot is missing in action. Your reaction to that?
Sad that it happened, losing an aircraft when we do not have far too many aircrafts is of course a loss. But the pilot going down and being captured, I'm sure they will treat him humanely as per the Geneva Convention and not mistreat like they did in Kargil. But I think this is part of the game. If you are into something, if you are trying to defend India, in the process, some losses or some hardships will be there. I'm sure the soldiers and the airmen and the sailors won't mind undergoing that kind of a thing, and it's a matter of pride for the family that their son went to battle and thwarted the Pakistani Air Force nefarious designs. See, the problem with Pakistanis here is this: we had a legitimate target, which Pakistanis couldn't have morally, ethically, or otherwise defended. Pakistan, on the other hand, has no legitimate target on our side. It has been made very clear, the whole world understands what's happening and why India had to go. Actually, in my personal experience of having worked as a military diplomat and also in think tanks, having met a large number of people, every time people used to say, when would India stop taking terrorism from Pakistan without giving a credible answer? So many of them would have been today at least satisfied that India has done right. Secondly, if India wants to be a leading power, or if India is hailed as a net security provider in the region, India must be able to take care of its own security. It's only thereafter that others will trust India to do this. So I think that is good. And Mr. Prabhudyal and Mr. Tiwari both were saying right that war is definitely not a solution. Of whatever I've studied in military history, people call them just wars, good wars, bad wars. Just wars and other kinds of wars. But I don't think any war has been good, that has done good to humanity. But then it takes two to tango. And war, in any case, is the most fundamental decision that any government has to make, going to war and stopping the war. Fortunately, we have the experience of stopping the 71 war when the military objectives and the political objectives were achieved. We stopped it and stopped it at once. So I don't think and in the absence of rhetoric, fortunately, it won't be difficult to stop this kind of madness. Pakistan understands. Actually, when they yesterday said on the televisions that wait for a surprise from us and all that, I was hoping, I was sanguine that they will announce that we have taken note of the jihadis working from our soil, operating from our soils, and that hereby we undertake
Brigadier Dahiya, that would have been a pleasant surprise.
With the global community to make sure that the jihadis no more operate from there.
That would have
been a pleasant surprise, absolutely.
Yes, but I don't think Pakistan is in the mood to give us any pleasant surprises at this point.
And coming
yes.
from
No, but I do want to ask you this. Brigadier Raya, I do want to ask you this. We understand that the airports are being opened to the north of Delhi. The airports are closed this morning for civilian commercial traffic. Does this mean now that both countries will de-escalate, you know, from where we are?
Yeah, I think, actually, I think, you know, quite a lot of things happen, you know, under the table, as or should I say, behind a curtain. Many of us don't know. I mean, I don't know, you don't know, others don't know, but things happen. Back and forth communications continue. Even in case of war, the communications continue. I'm sure that when this is opened, it shows two things. One, India is in a position to handle if there is a deceitful action being planned from the other side. And if in the process there is a little bit of a loss, we will take that loss because that will strengthen our moral position. And then we'll be in a greater, we'll have a greater heft in handling Pakistan thereafter. And we'll say, we trusted you there and you are again, you know, breached our trust. That's number one. Second, I think there must be some kind of a understanding on both sides now that, look, whatever has happened has happened. You took an action because you felt aggrieved. We know that war is not in our good for any one of us, and let's not exacerbate the problems, and things are cooling down. I'm sure the second one is a better option, and I would prefer the second thing if it has happened, that if they genuinely feel both the countries, somebody must be talking to both together, because what has also happened, if you see, that Pakistan is totally and royally isolated today. I mean, OIC was perhaps symbolically was the last bastion. Practically, China was the last bastion. Turkey can't do anything because Turkey itself keeps going after the Kurds in Syria and in Iraq. Saudi Arabia is going after terrorists in the name of terrorists. At least they are going to Yemen. China has millions of Uyghurs in internment camps. Who supports Pakistan in this endeavor of nurturing jihadis in their backyard? So they are royally isolated, and I think there must be a realization in their mind that, look, it's not a good occasion to really flex their muscles. Secondly, which people probably don't know very much, Pakistan is desperately short of precision-guided munitions and munitions of many kinds. If a war takes place, they cannot sustain their forces for a week. Now, this is my assessment of following as to how their defense expenditure have gone, what they have spent the money on and all that. They're in a precarious situation militarily.
Well, it is a precarious situation, but yes, I do see your hand go up, Mr. Dayal. Go ahead, you want to weigh in?
Well, you know, Brigadier is absolutely right.
And the thing is
those
that
of us
it's the
interact
khaki,
with
which is the
foreign diplomats,
military that has ego problem there.
Yes. Mr. Dayal, go ahead, please.
Brigadier is absolutely right that those of us who interact with foreign leaders and foreign diplomats are often asked, why do we tolerate terrorism coming from Pakistan? The fact of the matter is that we don't tolerate. We counter attack whenever we need to, and we have done that in a remarkable fashion during the last few days. Of course, we have all along shown restraint also, because we have ensured that our counter action does not escalate and become a problem in the sense that retracting it is difficult. Now, sometimes these situations develop in such a manner that two sides are drawn into the classic ego trap. You don't want to appear weak-kneed if you work towards de-escalation. I think our task is very clear-cut. First of all, I don't expect that jihadi outfits in Pakistan will ever cease to exist. They will always be there. We will always have to take care of them and counter their activities. Secondly, having said that, we should, and this also is true for Pakistan, both sides should not allow things to get out of control. We have to be prepared for the worst, but we have to work out of a situation where the worst is the scenario that confronts us. Domestically, there are many things that need to be done. You rightly pointed out, Faye, that the media has not really conducted itself in a manner which really behoves itself. I think it could have done much better. At the same time, the political class also needs to realize that it's not the sort of situation from where mileage points need to be drawn. Rather, the need of the hour is for the political classes to all come together. I've watched any number of television debates in the last few days, and the ruling party representatives and the opposition representatives clash over even small things. I think the need of the hour is to put aside all such differences and to come together, because at least as a nation, in this sort of crisis, we should be seen to be all standing together, hand in hand.
Yes.
I would even wish for a national government, because a national government could ensure the participation of leaders of all political parties, and together they could all work towards what is the national good. I do not know whether that sort of thing happens. It has happened earlier in other countries during times of war, times of crisis. I don't think yet that we are in a state of war, but we are certainly heading towards a situation where things are going out of control, and that is not desirable from anybody's point of view. Of course, Pakistan has done the wrong thing by not reining in the jihadi outfits in their terrorist activities against India. But I think the way out of this particular situation is that, having shown Pakistan that we can hit at these camps of the jihadi outfits, the need of the hour is for the leaders of the two sides to somehow talk to one another, to find a way out, because escalation of the conflict would not suit anybody. The message has been sent across loud and clear. The Pakistanis also claim to have sent a message. So as far as ego issues are concerned, I think matters have been taken care of. But now is the time for cool reflection, and the leaders of both sides have a great responsibility not to let things spiral out of control.
Well, for everyone who was calling for war over the last 14 days since Pulwama, I think this is a moment really to sit back and realize that war involves real human beings and real families who have to take up the task of what needs to be done. So our thoughts are really with the Indian pilot who is missing in action as of now, as confirmed by the Indian government. We're going to take a very quick break, but we'll come back and we'll stay with the story. India is united, and we need to stay united, not just in opinion, in information and in alertness, but in what we do really for the best of our country. Stay with us. Good afternoon. You're watching Mirror Now. A day after the airstrike at Balakot across the line of control, the Ministry of External Affairs today has said that India successfully foiled attempts made by Pakistan to target our military installations in India. In a media briefing, the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Raveesh Kumar has said that India was on high alert and that the Indian Air Force detected the Pakistan aircraft movement and shot one down. One F-16 of the Pakistan Air Force has been shot down. However, unfortunately, during that engagement, one MiG-21 Bison went missing. The Ministry of External Affairs has also said that Pakistan claims that the pilot of that aircraft is in their custody. As of now, the Indian government has only confirmed so far that the pilot is missing in action. Indian authorities are still ascertaining the facts of what the status of that pilot is. Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, joins me on this conversation. So does Brigadier Dahiya, Strategic Affairs Analyst, and Vinay Tiwari in the studio with me. Vinay, when we had this conversation yesterday, it was very clear from all of our experts that if Pakistan were to in any way target our military or civilian installations, that would be an outright declaration of war. We understand now that Pakistan has attempted to target a military installation. What does that mean?
Yes, I mean, so the Foreign Office statement says so in as many words that they made an attempt to target our military installations, and because the Indian Air Force was in a state of high preparedness, they became airborne and they chased them out. It was in fact during this chase that this MiG-21 fell, and we have a pilot who's gone missing in action. So, well, technically you can look at it as a escalation of hostility by Pakistan. It's also intent of almost attacking India, because remember,
Yes.
the Indian official position has been that we did not, it was an intelligence-led operation against in a non-military operation. So that's been our official position in vis-a-vis what happened in Balkot yesterday. That this was not meant at an army installation, it was neither meant at civilians, it was purely aimed at a terrorist camp. So there is that distinction that while India went and actually attacked just a terrorist camp, Pakistan chose to retaliate by actually going after our military assets, which is almost a declaration of a hostile intent. So it's grave provocation, and even the second part of the statement confirms that India did what it meant, a defensive maneuver. And this was not an attacking maneuver in the morning. We were responding to their aircraft and trying to chase them back out of Indian airspace. And that's what, and when something went wrong and a plane went down. So even now, if you see this way, Indian position officially is that we are still acting with restraint. And despite the fact that they have chosen to try and attack Indian military installation, we have not gone into an offensive. That is pretty much the situation. And I think we need to read that into the withdrawal of the NOTAM, where the air traffic for civilian craft has been reopened for this evening. Because I
Yes.
think it's very clear that the government wants to de-escalate the situation and not let it go out of control.
The government wants to de-escalate the situation. It's the same question, and we do know that the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has made a statement, and we will just get that statement ready for you in a little while. But Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat, Mr. Dayal, what is your reaction right now? To the statement being made by Imran Khan, where he basically said, if we let this escalate any further, it will no longer be in our hands. We make an offer one more time to sit down and talk about it and de-escalate. What's your reaction to that?
Well, Faye, I said earlier too that although it is a very big challenge, but the need of the hour is to meet the challenge, and having conveyed the message to the Pakistanis that we can hit the terror camps inside their territory, and therefore they should wind up such terror camps. Having conveyed the message, it's equally our responsibility to prevent the situation from going out of control. As I said a little while ago, these jihadi outfits will always exist in Pakistan. They will always carry out the handiwork of the Pakistan Army, because the Pakistan Army will use them as their cat's paw for carrying out the proxy war. So overall the situation will not change. But I don't agree with Vinay that this time the Pakistanis have done something new, in the sense that they have attacked a military installation. Because the Pakistani jihadi outfits have been targeting our military installations for quite a long time. You know, Pathankot, Uri, Baramulla, Pulwama were all attacks on our military or paramilitary outfits. We had to convey a very strong message that things had gone too far, and that the Pakistan government had the responsibility of reining in these jihadi outfits and keeping the army's propensities in check. We did send out that message. Of course, it takes two sides to behave responsibility. If we hold out an olive branch, then the Pakistanis have to be sincere in holding out the olive branch from their side. What I heard Prime Minister Imran Khan say does hold out a ray of hope. But the problem is that the Prime Minister of Pakistan doesn't count for as much as the armed forces do. Now, what is in the thinking and the strategic planning of the armed forces of Pakistan is very, very important to figure out. My own hunch is that in any conflict, the biggest casualties are taken by the armed forces. So, while the Pakistani armed forces would like to provoke us to the hilt, but I think they also realize that it is better to stop short of actual war. Because in every single war which Pakistan has fought with us, it has taken very heavy casualties. Of course, we have also taken casualties, but the Pakistani casualties have been more numerous. So, at this juncture, rather than try and gain a sense of one-upmanship, rather than escalate things, I think the need of the hour is to realize that from our point of view, we have sent across a message. We have made it clear that if the need arises, we can strike at the jihadi terror camps. We expect Pakistan to rein in these terror outfits. The United Nations has spoken very clearly and categorically against the jaish-e-mohammed, so by implication other jihadi outfits. The Financial Action Task Force is taking action to proscribe the jihadi outfits which have become a nuisance globally because they have a global terror potential. So, at this juncture, while putting out these messages, it's equally important to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, because I'm sure that neither side wants a conflagration to actually break out, an armed conflagration involving the full-scale might of the two armies. As I said in my first intervention at the beginning of your program, it takes more courage to make peace, because for making peace, you have to make a compromise. In a compromise, no side has its way entirely. But it's a matter of give and take. It's a matter of give and take. So we have to figure out how much we are prepared to give and how much Pakistan is prepared to give. Because
I want to ask you this question.
Arrangement like that, I'm afraid things will spiral.
I want to ask you this question. When we say de-escalate now and peace, what does that entail? Because we know that India is not going to have a conversation with Pakistan unless that conversation is about dismantling terror. That has been our official diplomatic stand. Does that differ at a time like this, Vinay?
Yeah, no, just because Mr. Dayal just mentioned one point where he disagreed with me. I just wanted to just clarify on that.
Yes.
Pakistan's attack on Indian military installations have always been now lately through jihadis, through terrorists.
Yes.
A uniformed officer has never attacked any military installation since Kargil in many ways, right? That in that sense, what the Indian government today has said today is a big departure, because this was a Pakistani Air Force plane, according to the Indian statement, which was trying to attack an military installation, whether it was Pathankot or whether it was any other base that we were attacked with, they were terrorists. That was not a Pakistani army officer or a Pakistani Air Force officer who was attacking us. So that's a big change. And this can't be taken lightly, because you have actually used your Air Force to come in and target our military installations. And in that sense, the Pakistani have kind of ratcheted up the hostility against India in response to what happened in Balkot yesterday. But the de-escalation process, the question that you asked me personally was, look, Imran Khan's statement in that sense is one indicator of that. Now, his statement very obviously, and I think if you notice, because we haven't put it out, but the feed that was coming in, Imran Khan's statements are always edited. You can see there are jump cuts in between, because very obviously he says more than he should, and the army sits there and snips it out. Yeah, somebody cleans it up.
Not very well though. But
it's not very well done, because you can see the jump cut. So very obviously all his statements are never live, and they always snip it out. So I don't know what he said in original, but what they've put out is actually, it's like a double-edged thing. He's also indirectly, he used one statement where he said, you have certain weapons and I have certain weapons. He did not use the N word.
Yes.
But he said, you have some weapons and I have some weapons, and can you guarantee that it can't there can be no miscalculation or that? So it's also a threat in that sense, the old nuclear threat that they keep coming back with.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's also saying, let's go back to the table and talk, something that the Indian government is now fed up with. They really can't talk anymore, because they've said, what do you talk about? They keep talking about terror, but they never really do anything about it. So, but clearly you can see that I mean, in the sense that there is some conciliatory efforts being made as well now to ensure that, clearly he's trying to indicate that let's not take it any further, because this can only lead to some kind of mistake or a miscalculation, and that can prove very costly for both of them.
In fact, we will have that Imran Khan statement for you, and we'll play it out in a little while. But Brigadier, here, my question to you is this: do you see this perhaps as Pakistan's army via Imran Khan saying that, you know what, let's stop now because we don't want to take this any further? This is a clear call perhaps to de-escalate.
Faye, as an optimist, I hope that that's what they really mean. But there has often been a difference between what they say and what they mean. And like it was pointed out earlier, he is not his own master. So what finally the military decides, that will prevail. That's one. He also never mentioned in his statement that yes, there are jihadis on Pakistani soil, that yes, Pakistani establishment is using jihadis for their strategic ends. He never mentioned that. Now that puts his whole statement under a question mark as to whether he is sincere about it or not. You see, Pakistan's main goal has been somehow take away Kashmir, at least the Kashmir Valley, from India. Now that is the ultimate goal, let us say. And the second, of course, in the process, one very important step has been engage India, get acknowledgement from India that yes, it is a disputed place and that we have to talk and we need to talk. And the lower order is engage India into talks and carry on. So that, and that's why the charade of uninterrupted and uninterruptible talk, which I personally don't believe in, that there can't be uninterrupted, uninterruptible talk when we keep killing our people. So that is one. So there is, so far at least, there is doubt whether Imran Khan is sincere and whether his word will be carried at all or not. However, let me say that it's in any adversity, leaders sometimes emerge. And this is an opportunity for Imran Khan to call the bluff of his own army and say, look, I am the elected prime minister, howsoever, you may have helped me a lot in becoming prime minister, but now that I am a prime minister, I will take my decisions. And I want peace with India. And this word can be conveyed to the prime minister directly. Having said this, two things I'd come back to this thing. One is how Indian public and media have behaved. Faye, I appreciate your good judgment. But at the same time, let me say that despite all that hype and all that, Indian media and Indian public in this particular case have behaved extremely well. There hasn't been that kind of a jingoism which says, okay, let's march to the border, let's march to Lahore and all that kind of thing. It's fairly restrained, unprovocative, but please understand that these are human beings, and these human beings, their pride is hurt so many times when our own people are killed in our own country by others. And if you don't give them the freedom of even celebrating a little bit of happiness, then what's the use? What kind of people are we? They are not trained diplomats to hide truth in national interest, or they're not trained soldiers who are supposed to control their anger and control their fear and master it. I mean, these are common people. That's number one. Number two, as far as war is concerned, nobody understands the horrors of war better than a soldier. Having been a soldier, I know how bad war is and how bad it is for the families. But to rule out war for the sake of appearing a good boy is not something that I will in any case vouch for. I would say that if war becomes necessary, we must fight and win. At the same time, try and give a chance to peace, and if we have to choose between the two, always and every time choose peace. That's what India has been doing. Our Foreign Secretary's statement did not say anything awkward. In fact, they provided a face saving to Pakistan. I listened to the Prime Minister twice yesterday, one at Churu and then at ISKCON Temple. What a dignified way of putting things across. And I know that people, at least in Churu, were expecting much more bellicose kind of a statement, a triumphalism of a kind on display. But he didn't, he eschewed that kind of a thing. I think he was extremely well restrained. He behaved statesmanlike yesterday. I mean, he is good in many ways as it is, but yesterday, in particular, I was highly impressed by his body language and all. On the other hand, there is a photo viral of the Pakistani cabinet, wherein the Pakistani Prime Minister is slouching in the chair in a red scarf and all that like. I mean, that doesn't really give a prime ministerial kind of a look. So I think overall, we have behaved extremely well. We have been truthful in saying that we have lost a MiG fighter and that our pilot is missing, all this. I think this is a restrained behavior of a confident country, and I'm sure that we'll carry the day.
Bringing you back, Vinay, to the statement made by the Pakistan Prime Minister, where he said we're inviting India back to the table to talk. He also, like you said, sort of suggested weaponry. He suggested, quite worryingly for a head of state, that once you start a war, you don't know where it will go, and you don't really have full control over that situation. What's your reaction to those statements?
Yes, and linked to your question, Brigadier Saab mentioned that Imran Khan should call the army's bluff, and I wish any Prime Minister in Pakistan can actually call their army's bluff. I mean, he knows it better than I do, that Pakistani Prime Ministers, however democratically elected, they maybe have absolute no role. I mean, they're just going to unseat you the minute you start flexing your muscles. It's as simple as that. I mean, they've done that many times. They'll probably do that again. So he's as much of a puppet as they come, especially in the way in which he won this election, with the hardliner support, with the Pakistan army support and all that. And this particular statement, in many ways, you see, is a reflection of that. It's really what the army wants him to say, what he's ended up saying. The trouble is, and as Brigadier Saab rightly said, Pakistan can't be trusted. They say one thing and they do exactly the opposite. This is maybe the 100th time that they're repeating this whole offer of so-called talks. I mean, this has been going on since the Shimla Agreement, when they keep talking about holding talks. They keep talking about saying, oh, give us proof and we will act against this in terms of terrorism. But they never do it. I mean, whether it was Parliament attack or whether it was 26/11, they've never acknowledged anything. And I think the trouble is that the Indian government now cannot trust that. I mean, they really have no faith on that.
But so we've had two press conferences. We had two statements, one from the Pakistan Prime Minister and one from the Ministry of External Affairs back home. Now, the Ministry of External Affairs, Raveesh Kumar, who spoke with the media, has not in any way given any suggestion of what we want to do. Do we want to de-escalate? What is our what is our aim right now? Has not been suggested at all. And is that something you expect will be told to us?
No. So look, if a briefing is being done by the Foreign Ministry spokesperson, it is not
likely to be
this kind of a comment will not come from a Foreign Ministry spokesperson, because this is really a brass tacks briefing where he's just clarified a few things that have been going around in the media since morning, and they will stick to that, because this is not in the remit to go and say, oh, whether you don't give away your future policy or strategy at all. Certainly not in these briefings. I guess this kind of a comment can come from a political leadership, certainly, but it will not come from the bureaucracy at all. They will stick to operational details, and they will stick to the details they want the media to know or to be shared with the public at large. So that won't happen. I think we need to await, and I don't know when that will happen, when the first Indian political comment comes through the day, if at all it does. I mean, my personal sense is it may not come at all. It's quite possible. I don't think it will come at the Prime Minister's level, but it may come at some other minister's level. But I think that would be a far greater significance, because it's the political class that actually ends up indicating the mood of what the government is trying to do.
Is it customary to have the Pakistan head of state speak so often in this manner?
They tend to speak way more than the Indians. I mean, they are. I mean, in the sense that because that's part of their machinery. That's part of the propaganda machinery that they do. So every Prime Minister, if you see there, they speak way more or address the nation way more than perhaps the Indians do. I mean, I've seen that happening for a very, very long time. They tend to speak more. And Imran Khan particularly is, because they want him to say a lot of things. As I said, he's almost like a puppet who's being guided by what the army wants him to. He keeps addressing the public at large, and he always addresses in a very, I mean, he's very unconventional in that sense. I mean, he's unpredictable, and people are not really sure what he's going to end up saying, in terms of the words that he chooses.
Yes, for example, things like all wars are miscalculated and no one knows where they will lead to. World War I was supposed to end in weeks and it took 6 years. Similarly, US never expected the war on terrorism to last 17 years. I ask India, with the weapons you have, with the weapons we have, can we really afford such a miscalculation? It's an interesting choice of words. If this escalates, things will no longer be in my control.
Yes, I mean, which is a very scary thing.
Which is a very scary thing for a head of state.
He then lumped it on us also, saying it's not in Mr. Modi's control. But frankly, it's completely in our control. It's not in their control. I mean, so he's said something bizarre. He's saying it's not in my control.
Yes. So I wanted, ask that question of Mr. Dayal as well. Mr. Prabhu Dayal, this statement that's coming out saying that, you know, all wars are miscalculated, no one knows where they will lead to. With the weapons you have and the weapons we have, we can't afford such a miscalculation. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I do think that wars always result from miscalculation, either from one party or from both parties. For far too long have we appeared not to be reacting to the provocations which were coming from the Pakistani side. Of course, these provocations were directed by the jihadi outfits, because it was the jaish-e-mohammed which took responsibility for Uri, for Pulwama, for Pathankot, for the attack on our parliament. But at the same time, the jaish-e-mohammed was doing whatever it could at the behest of the Pakistan army. There is an umbilical relationship between the Pakistan army and the jihadi outfits. Of course, Vinay was right in saying that this very, very recent incursion by the Pakistani aircraft is the first sign of the Pakistani military machine being directly involved, while earlier it was the jihadi outfits who were carrying out the activities against India. But the fact that the jihadi terror camps and launching pads are located so close to the border shows that the jihadi outfits were doing the handiwork of the Pakistan army itself. So there is a very umbilical relationship between the two. The problem is that the Pakistan government pretends that these are non-state actors. A sincere dialogue would necessarily entail a responsibility on the Pakistan government to clamp down on the jihadi outfits. If it does not, then there is no way out of the situation, because it can claim that it means well towards India, but there are these non-state actors which are carrying out, and that the bone of contention is Kashmir, and so on and so forth. If there is a sincere dialogue, then I think there is a possibility of reining in the jihadi outfits. But of course, if the position of Pakistan continues to be insincere, to sort of distance itself from the activities of these outfits, then I think there is a no-no to any sort of progress which is meaningful. Now, we are getting into a situation, unfortunately, where the Pakistanis are unwilling to take any responsibility for the sort of attacks which are taking place on India. And we have been confronted with a situation where we appear not to be reacting at all. I think we have come to a stage where we have shown that we can act against these outfits. The Pakistanis have shown that, well, they are prepared to retaliate too. I don't know how a situation developed where our aircraft was shot down, because I think, I don't know so much about military maneuvers, but if it could have been avoided, then we wouldn't have been in a situation where perhaps one of our pilots was in their custody. But the need of the hour, all said and done, is to somehow sit down and work your way out of the situation, because not doing so would increase the costs, would escalate the tension, would let the situation spiral upwards. And I don't know how easy it would be to bring things down when the situation has gone out of hand. It is better to clamp things down now. We have sent across a message. They said they would also, take a retaliatory action. Perhaps they have done so. I think wise counsel now should prevail, and the two sides should sit down and sort things out, because it is not impossible to find a way out of any problem, particularly a political problem. Not finding a way out increases the costs. Of course, as a nation, we would be prepared to pay the cost if we have to. But can we not find a way of not getting into a total war situation? We have faced many wars. We can face another one. The costs get higher. And I think wise leadership should pull the two countries out of the brink of war. That is my hope, and that is my counsel.
Well, we are waiting for another briefing, we understand, from the Air Force, perhaps, and we'll get that in a bit, or we're going to have some more guests join us. But okay, Air Marshal Kapil Kaf is ready to join us on this conversation. First of all, Air Marshal, thank you for joining us and good afternoon. And
Hey, just one thing.
just one second, Brigadier, I'll come back to you. Air Marshal, obviously, for most of the people in the Air Force right now, their thoughts are going to be with the Indian pilot from the Indian Air Force who is missing in action. This is going to be a moment of great concern and great worry. Air Marshal, can you hear me? All right. Somehow when we are told that the guest is ready and the lines are through, it's not always the case. Obviously, everybody's minds now, including on social media, is with the one pilot who has been, who's missing in action. This is what we know. There are claims, again, unverified from the other side of the border that there may be more than one. But we're only going to go, and the right thing to do here is to go with what the government has told us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there is only one pilot which the government has confirmed as missing. They still haven't confirmed that he's in Pakistani custody, even though the Pakistanis may be claiming that.
Yes.
But the usual process, in case that gets confirmed, I think Brigadier Saab alluded to that some time back, there is always a track to that happens behind the scenes, even in a situation of hostility or conflict. And I'm almost certain that that process has already started happening. It can become a little more formal when the DGMOs start talking to each other via the hotline. There is a hotline that exists between the two countries for precisely these situations. You could even have a DGMO level meeting that may happen between the two, because that has happened in the past. If you remember, during Kargil, Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa, his plane was shot down and he was captured by the Pakistani army, and he was released after 6 days. And all these activities had happened then between the Indian government and the military DGMOs of the two countries. So the process is there. The only thing is the government has to officially ascertain whether he's in their custody or not. And then it will be a protracted negotiation, because it's not as if the Pakistanis will immediately agree to it. I think the DGMO level contact is also done because it's customary for a country to call up another country and remind them of Geneva Conventions. Because of the 4 conventions, one is meant for precisely this kind of a situation, where an enemy plane has been shot down and somebody's been captured. There is a protocol that you need to follow in terms of whether it is sickness, whether he has to be hospitalized, whether he has to be treated, given humane treatment. However, how much of that is done or not is another issue, but it's certainly the procedure. You have to remind the other country that you got to follow.
Especially if a plane has gone down and if he's in requirement of medical attention, then that medical attention must be provided.
Must be provided.
That's what the Geneva Convention
Not just provided, you also have to treat the man as dignity, and a man who's not in combat. The Geneva Convention says that the minute somebody is found behind enemy lines and doesn't have his weapon on him, he's laid down his arms, he's considered not a non-combatant. So in that sense, since his plane has gone down and he's been captured, he should be treated as a non-combatant. He cannot be treated as a combatant, he can't be tortured, he cannot be taken as a prisoner of war, all of that. So there is established convention, and DGMOs usually, or the government track 2 level, they are reminded of that. Now, obviously, I don't think they will say this as of now, because the Indian government hasn't verified this claim yet of the Pakistanis, and I think that process must be on.
That process must be on. We're going to take a very quick break here, Mirana, but we'll come back immediately after this, and we'll stay with this with the story. India is united right now with the forces, and of course with the one Indian Air Force pilot who has been confirmed missing in action. On the other side, don't worry.